Well, hello. Here's a stability demonstration I like to do with my clients. Usually learn a lot. And what I want to focus on here is that if you add power, it has the effect of trimming the airplane up rapidly. So you see here the VSI is pegging out at 1,500 feet per minute. The airplane is going into a climb and the airspeed is rapidly decaying. And the reason is that I added power abruptly. When you add power abruptly, it puts a lot of prop wash across the tail, and it's the exact same thing as grabbing a giant handful of trim. Alright, now here's what happens when you reduce power abruptly. So here we are stabilized 90 knots, 8,500, level flight. I'm going to pull the power back abruptly to 1,700 RPM and watch the nose fall off rapidly. VSI is going to peg out at 1,500 RPM. Airspeed is going to accelerate. And this would certainly not be considered stabilized. So a lot of pilot attention to the airplane would be required in this case. The airplane is going to oscillate. I'm not going to make you guys watch it at full speed, so I kind of sped it up there. It will eventually stabilize, but we don't have time for all that, right? So a better option is to go ahead and apply the throttle smoothly. And this is why if you get ahead of the airplane and you're anticipating things and you're smooth with the airplane, it all is so easy. It's when you start getting behind the airplane, you start reacting and putting rapid control movements in and rapid power changes, that things start to get pretty rowdy pretty fast. So that's what I don't recommend. And here you saw I added power smoothly. The airspeed is speeding up and then slowing down, speeding up and slowing down, but it's doing it so small and so slowly that it's imperceptible, and it has basically the effect of making it appear as though it's just one smooth climb. Very little pilot skill required if you have the wherewithal to lead your power changes and do them smoothly. Here I am leveling off at 8,500, and I'll demonstrate the same with a power reduction. Stabilized 90 knots, level flight, 8,500 feet. Pulled the power back smoothly, nice and smooth, to 2,000 RPM. That's that magic number for 500 feet per minute. I was at the top of an oscillation, so it was taking a second there to start its descent. But I was real smooth, really slow when I pulled the power back, and that's why the VSI is slowly creeping down. And the secret to this whole deal is moving the power or the trim wheel, because they're kind of the same thing in this way, moving them at a rate that the actual physical metal airplane thingy going through the sky is going to accelerate or slow down at. So if you grab a giant handful of trim and move it quickly, that's too fast for the airplane to keep up. Same thing with the throttle. If you throw tons of throttle in there or out, it can't keep up. So you'll notice I added 10 degrees of flaps. The airspeed goes from 90 knots to 80 knots. Every time you add 10 degrees of flaps, the airplane's going to slow down 10 knots if you don't intervene, if you don't do anything else. Knowing that, what you could do is just simply decide for yourself what you want your final approach speed to be, and then add 10 knots for each 1 degree of flaps that you intend to use. That would be a pretty easy way to figure out what speed to fly on the downwind to make it so that you will arrive on final approach at whatever airspeed it is that you want. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the easiest way. And so I'm a pilot. I like to do things the easiest way possible. Fewer button clicks, fewer control inputs, fewer power changes. It all adds up to a lot in the end. So ultimately we started at 90 knots. That's why we're doing 60 knots here. 61 knots to be exact. I usually recommend 70 knots on final, but if you're doing a short field approach and landing, you'll need 61 knots. So up to you. Do what you want to do. 60 knots for the short field, 70 knots normal, plus 1/2 any gust factor will do the job.